If you or a friend is shooting way too much mass weight on their bow, this video is for you. We're going to talk about how the mass weight you use affects the way that your bow reacts, how it interacts with your draw weight, your shooting style, and your training volume, as well as walk you through how to properly test different amounts of mass weight in a safe way that is going to lead you to the perfect setup for you. Let's get into it. Maybe you're looking to fine-tune the way your bow aims, feels, reacts by changing the mass weight up a little bit, whether that be up or down. And maybe you're curious, if I increase my mass weight, are there some aiming or scoring advantages to be had there? Or if I reduce my mass weight, maybe I can train a little more. Maybe I make it through to the end of an event without being as tired. While going through the process of putting together a recommendation to help people find their mass weight, we realize that there's not a super clear formula or pattern that applies to everybody in the same way. Instead, the mass weight used on your stabilizers is a bit more of an individualized topic, and everybody finds something works a little bit differently for them to shoot their best. But regardless of where that is, we're going to go over how adding or removing weight can affect your setup, as well as give you some tips on how to find the right amount of weight for you. So, to avoid confusion, in this video, when we say bow weight or weight, we're talking about the mass weight. That is how much your bow would weigh if we put it on a scale. We'll touch on how the mass weight and draw weight interact later, but for now, when we say mass or mass weight, we're referring to the weight you use on your stabilizers. Most athletes tend to add way too much mass weight way too quickly. Because adding weight can initially make your bow feel better. It might aim steadier, sound smoother, give you just that little extra bit of confidence, but too often that extra mass weight can lead to technical breakdown, lower arrow volumes, or even injury. Sometimes it's a little bit of an ego thing. You know, you're sitting there, you're looking at what your buddy next to you is shooting on his bow. He's got a couple more ounces than you. You're trying to be cool, you put a couple more ounces on. You know what's not cool? A shoulder injury. You know what's not cool? Performing below your expectations. Just a friendly reminder, the last several gold medals in the Olympics were won by archers shooting 5 ounces or less on the long stabilizer. If it's good enough for Olympic gold, it's probably good enough for you. First, let's talk about reasons to remove weight. You should consider taking an ounce or two off of each stabilizer if you notice that you're not able to maintain your posture. Maybe your body's leaning backwards, you're leaning away from the target, you just can't keep that nice, clean stance. If your bow shoulder is rising or your bow arm feels unstable, if you're noticing that your technique is already starting to break down before you've shot over 200 arrows in a training session, or maybe your sight pin's pulling down below the gold while you're aiming. These are all reasons to experiment with removing a little bit of mass weight. There are some cases that adding a little bit of mass weight may be appropriate. If you feel like your bow is jumpy or twitchy, if you feel like your aiming's a little bit erratic or jittering around, perhaps you're shooting in very windy conditions and a little bit more mass weight can help resist the wind pushing you. Or maybe your bow poundage just feels too strong relative to the mass weight of the bow. Things just don't really feel in sync. Changing your bow's mass weight can significantly change how it feels and reacts. The reason is, adding weight softens your stabilizers, while removing weight stiffens them, so we can kind of tune how your stabilizers are reacting based on how much mass weight you have attached. Also, heavier setups can feel more stable in the wind or mute unwanted body movement during execution. Sometimes a heavier bow might sound better due to how your stabilizers absorb vibration. Lighter setups could tend to feel a bit more lively. You're going to get a little bit more jump and potentially spin out of your bow when it is lighter compared to when you have it really loaded up with a lot of mass weight. Next, let's look at how your draw weight and the mass weight of the bow have to be in sync to make your bow feel and shoot its best. Now, we intuitively know that there needs to be some kind of connection and balance between the two. For example, if we have a pound of weight on the end of your stabilizer, but your draw weight's only 20 pounds, it's not going to feel right. That bow is going to have a tendency to want to pivot in your hand down towards the ground because your leverage on the stabilizers is much greater than that of the force of the draw weight to hold that bow level. And on the other hand, if we go with like 2 ounces on the front stabilizer and a 55-pound draw on a recurve bow, you're not going to get much of a stabilizing effect because the draw weight is way overpowering the mass weight that's on the end of the stabilizer. So we want to be somewhere in the middle. Also, if you have a very light draw weight bow, you probably don't have the training stamina to be loading up a ton of mass weight on the stabilizers. Let's get the fundamentals right first, and then start to add the weight gradually. One pattern we did find when surveying top archers is that those who identified as having a slow, methodical, more aiming-based shot process tended to use higher mass weights on their stabilizers. And those archers who had a quick rhythmic shot process tend to shoot lighter mass weight. This does make sense because if you are spending more time at full draw, aiming, you're potentially exposed to more gusts of wind. A little bit more mass weight is going to slow down the movement of the bow, slow down the movements of your body, and it does make it a little bit easier to shoot with that style of shooting. On the other hand, if you're trying to be very quick, very rhythmic, then a lighter mass weight bow is going to be a little bit easier to control, and it's a little bit more responsive to your corrections, which supports a faster shooting style. So based on your shooting style, you may find yourself drawn to a little bit higher or a little bit lower mass weight, but it's important not to get too crazy. I'm gonna let you guys in on a secret. The mass weight that you shoot on your bow affects your training. And if you shoot a bow that is too heavy and it is bringing down the arrow volume you can shoot before your technique is breaking down, you are missing out on improvement and points that you could be adding to your score. If you shoot a bow that is lighter and you can increase your training volume, you're going to get in more repetitions, your technique is going to improve faster, and you're going to become a better overall athlete in a shorter amount of time. Shooting too much weight will hold back reaching your potential. Now, let's talk about how to make weight changes strategically and effectively using a smart and safe approach. Let's say you picked yourself up one of these bad boys, the Ramrod's 421 weight. You got a 4 ounce, a 2 ounce, and a 1 ounce. And now you want to experiment a little bit and you want to try finding, can I pick up a couple points through adjusting the balance of my bow? Let's walk through step by step what goes into proper weight testing to make sure that you're not only improving your performance, but you're doing it with a total mass weight that is going to be appropriate for what you can handle. First things first, when you start your testing session, make sure that you're properly warmed up and go ahead and shoot a few ends and make sure that you're really ready to feel what's happening in your shot. And while you're doing these warm-up ends, take some inventory, kind of check yourself, how you're doing. How's your technique? Are you keeping your bow arm stable? Is your posture good? How's your shot timing? Is everything comfortable? Are you in tune with what your body's doing? And then from there, we're gonna start looking for reasons why we might want to add or remove a little bit of weight based on how you're shooting. For example, if you're feeling like, I already can't shoot over 200 arrows in a training session, I'm having a hard time keeping my bow arm stable or my bow shoulder down, if your shot timing's getting too long, and if you're generally just feeling like your bow is a little bit difficult to control, these are great reasons to try removing an ounce or two from each of your stabilizers and test how a little bit of a lighter mass weight bow feels. Or you might be feeling like your sight pin movement is a little bit jittery. You might be feeling like your bow's just a little bit too quick to respond to any little thing that happens in your shot process. Those might be reasons to try adding an ounce or two and see, does a little bit more mass weight help me feel better, or am I still about the same? While you make adjustments, do be mindful of the overall front to back balance between the front rod and the side rods and try to keep that relatively stable. If you do want a little bit more help really dialing in just how the stabilizers are balanced for aim, check out this video where we go in depth on how to do that process properly. And after you make an adjustment, I'd recommend giving it quite a bit of time before you start tweaking more variables. Typically, if you make an ounce or two change, I would recommend shoot an entire day with that setup before you continue to move more in the same direction. For example, let's say you added an ounce to each side rod and to your front stabilizer, shoot an entire training session with that mass weight before you decide to add more. Make sure that you're able to finish an entire training session with proper technique, timing, and that you see improvements in your sight picture and your groups so that we know that we're actually headed in a direction that is helpful and best for you. After you finish up that training session, make sure to record what we did. It's very important that you take notes or even video so that we can document what change did I make, what did I notice happen in my technique and in my shot process, with my sight pin, with the way my equipment's reacting. That's not only going to help you verify if you're actually seeing an improvement with every change, but if you need to go back to something that was working better in the past, you're going to be able to do that. And by recording training sessions and taking notes, you're training yourself to be a little bit more self-coached, and that is going to make you more in tune with your shot process and what you're learning, and that is going to help you improve faster. Now remember, more weight is not always better. There are some cases where adding mass weight to your bow is going to help improve your shooting. But a lot of times we're doing this out of ego or being lazy or trying to cover up technical issues with more mass weight on the bow. More likely than not, that's not going to be best for everybody. So keep the ego in check, test things methodically, and find a mass weight that you can shoot comfortably for as many arrows as possible. If you follow the steps we talked about in this video, we're very confident that you're going to end up with a mass weight that works well for you and your shooting style and keeps you injury-free for many, many years to come. If this video helped you realize that you were shooting way too much mass weight and you have now come to accept a more reasonable bow setup that's going to help you shoot injury-free for longer, then drop us a like and send this to a friend that is using way too much mass weight on their bow. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next one.